Landbou is so interessant en vanoggend gesels ek met Dr. Jared Morris. Hy is 'n voerkraalspesialis by S&E Voerkraalkonsultasie. En ons praat 'n bietjie oor die voorkoming van respiratoriese siektes in die voerkraal. Dr. Morris, welcome to GROOTplaas.
Thank you. Thanks very much for having me on this cold and misty morning near the Nijssel in the Free State.
Well, it's such an honor for us. Tell us, for people who might not know, what are feedlots and why are they important when we look at agriculture in the big picture?
So feedlots form a very important part of agriculture and particularly the economy in South Africa. They are technically designed to feed animals in an accelerated state or to produce food for an ever-growing population. That's basically the purpose of feedlots, to supply the growing demand. If we had to produce beef in an extensive type setup, it would take far too long. And with the human population exceeding 8 billion, by 2050 they say we're going to be over 9 billion, we've got to find ways to produce food sources quicker to meet that growing demand and also do it in a sustainable way.
When exactly did feedlots become a thing, if I can ask it so bluntly? When was the need seen and when did it become something that became a priority?
I would say feedlots really started gaining momentum from the 1950s, 1960s, where it was actually used in a commercial setup, let's say, not just for trial work. 1950s, 1960s, and then it really started gaining momentum along with all the technologies and the new medications thereafter. So as the growing population was becoming more and more of a problem, so did feedlots then go up with that.
And practically, how does a feedlot, how does it look?
So a feedlot, if you had to look at it, there's basically just cattle everywhere. It is basically consisting of pens, and these animals are transported from different rearing farms, wherever they may be, to a central location, and they placed in these pens and they stand there for, let's say, 3 to 4 months, depending on the weight of the calf when they enter the feedlot. And then they fed a specifically formulated ration for that time, after which they, when they reach their terminal weight, they are transported to an abattoir for slaughter.
So it's got a specific goal?
Yes, the goal is we feed them fast, we want to keep them healthy, to get them to slaughter weight as quick as possible, as efficiently as possible, with as minimal mortalities as possible.
I'd like to know, why are cattle predisposed to respiratory disease? Why is that happening?
It's a very, very important question, and I must be honest, cattle are not designed to stand in feedlots, let's say that.
Yeah.
They've got a very, very small lung field, and I could say the smallest lung field of any of the largest domestic mammals. So if you look at the size of their lungs and the size of their body at the end of the feeding period, very, very small lungs. And with that small lung capacity, they are very much predisposed to respiratory disease, just because they aren't necessarily able to fight off infection as well. With a smaller lung volume, their respiratory rate's got to be a lot higher to compensate for the increased size, to oxygenate all the tissues. And with that, they are more predisposed. And I've also got to say, a feedlot is can be a very stressful environment, particularly for a young calf. When they arrive, they've just been weaned from mom. And that's probably the most stressful thing a young animal can go through, is the weaning process. Then we put them on a truck. They travel for, let's say, 8 hours or so. Then they are what we call commingled with calves from different sources. And now that stressful environment and the stress hormone cortisol is extremely prevalent. I mean, we all know when we're writing exams, the first thing we do is we get sick because of that stress hormone, and our immune system is taking a real knock from that.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of the stress of the new environment, the small lung field, and the high stocking densities that predisposes them to pneumonias, let's say.
Well, if we look at these respiratory diseases, my question is, and I'm always thinking, how can we prevent or make it better to prevent respiratory diseases, specifically in feedlots?
Right. So when they enter the feedlot, they are processed, let's say they are vaccinated with many different vaccines, particularly the respiratory vaccines. But when I am talking to my feedlot clients and all of that, and if we do have relationships with these suppliers, we always try and shift our focus to how can we produce a healthier calf that is both going to benefit the producing farmer and ultimately the feedlot. So it all actually comes down to vaccinating the pregnant cow at the farm of origin. And if we can time our vaccinations, particularly around a month before that cow is going to calve down with a respiratory vaccine, that calf is going to be vaccinated technically when it drinks its colostrum. And colostrum being the first milk, those antibodies are transferred into the colostrum and which the calf is going to drink. And there it's got some form of natural protection already without actually having to touch the animal.
Just hold that thought. Ons gaan net gou kyk na ons landboukalender. Groot gebeure in die landbougemeenskap waarvan jy moet weet. En hierdie is trots geborg deur FR+.
FR+, grow and guard your wealth.
Welkom terug. Nou ons gesels verder met Dr. Jared Morris. Hy's 'n voerkraalspesialis en ons praat 'n bietjie oor die voorkoming van respiratoriese siektes in die voerkraal. Dr. Morris, specifically when it comes to feedlots, what are the regulations? Are there any regulations surrounding feedlots that we should know about?
So look, the regulations around feedlots now, let me say particularly with the foot and mouth outbreak that we are battling with in South Africa, it's become a lot more regulated in terms of quarantining.
Yeah.
If I could say, biosecurity is the name of the game, not only for feedlots, but I'm imploring all farmers, you need to look after your own homestead.
Yes.
Minimize foot traffic coming onto the farm. You just need to protect yourself because this disease is spreading at a rapid rate. So in terms of regulation across feedlots, yes, there are biosecurity rules and everything, environmental impact studies that we've got to follow, just that we ensure that we are doing it as sustainably as possible. But particularly for the foot and mouth, yes, the regulations and the quarantining is something that's come to the forefront now.
And when we look specifically at respiratory diseases, what are some of the negative consequences when this happens?
So respiratory disease amongst cattle in feedlots, it's actually the leading cause of morbidity. So morbidity being treatments and leading cause of mortality across feedlots. And it's not only in South Africa, it's across the world. So this is a massive problem that we've been dealing with ever since feedlots actually came to the forefront. So as with anything, when an animal gets sick, we're going to see reduced production. He's not going to grow as well as his pen mates. And with that reduced growth, the animal is still going to eat. So then we're going to see a reduction in our feed conversion ratio. So that's basically the amount of feed that the animal eats to gain 1 kilogram. So we're going to see a negative effect there. We're going to see a negative growth. The animal's going to stand in the feedlot longer. And the longer he stands, I could say, the more predisposed he's going to be to picking up respiratory disease again. So there is a whole cascade of events. So it's all about prevention. Again, prevention is better than cure. So with vaccinations and all of that, it is essential. And on the topic of vaccinations, I want to say antimicrobial stewardship is also of extreme importance. It should be to both vets, anyone working in the livestock industry. We need to reduce the amount of antibiotics we use as much as possible. It is just It's essential. The rate of resistance development with the use of certain molecules that need to be reserved, it's just something that, let me say, it's good agricultural practice.
Yes, it is. I think when we look at the future, obviously the population is just going to keep on growing. Do you think the need for feedlots is going to become bigger, more drastic? And what would that ideal situation look like? If you as a doctor could give some advice, what would you give? What advice would you give the farmers?
For farmers, if I could say we've got to produce healthier animals with the use of vaccines. I mean, vaccines, you cannot develop resistance against it. That's how we actually make sure it's sustainable. You're using that animal's own immune system, and we use it in a clever way when mom is naturally producing antibodies to produce a healthier calf.
Yeah.
It's going to be less cost to treat that calf. You're going to wean it heavier. You're going to wean it earlier. So there's most certainly benefit for you. And yes, then the feedlot's going to gain a healthier animal. And then we can see we're going to start forming relationships. Feedlots, of course, they're going to want healthier animals. They're going to want animals that perform. And then they're going to see, all right, this animal came from this particular farmer. And that's, again, where the traceability systems need to start coming into place. Again, for biosecurity, but also for the incentives. If this calf produced or performed well in the feedlot, I'm most certainly going to want it again, because then everyone has benefited from it, and I know where it came from.
Yes.
So my whole biosecurity and traceability systems are in place, particularly for the export market. We are exporting currently to Saudi Arabia. And again, the largest focus that these guys want, how do I know my meat is safe? Where does it come from? So yes, it's the traceability.
Yeah, and specifically when we talk about traceability, that's becoming a hotter topic as we go, right? Yes, it's important.
Most certainly it is essential, let me say.
Dr. Morris, thank you so much for your time this morning. It's really interesting, and thanks for all the advice.
Thank you very much for having me, and have a great day.